talk about the budgetary process and how we formulated the budget. The budget is an ongoing process. It never really stops. We're constantly assessing what our needs and priorities are, but we formally begin the process in January. We meet individually as a cabinet. The cabinet includes myself, Dr. Chase, Michael Wood, and our business manager, Tony Mertz, in January. We meet individually with each principal, director, and assistant superintendent, and we begin to identify needs and then wants. And through that process, we then begin building our staffing and budget, looking at what is the priority and what the district can afford. This year, we were fortunate that through the process and our continual advocacy with the mayor and our incredibly good relationship with our state delegation and the advocacy that started at the grassroots level around the foundational budget formula, our state delegation, led by Senator Lewis, who is now the chair of the Education Committee, Representatives Altrino, Donato, and Broder, we've been able to secure additional funding that has enabled us to add staffing. I would call it an investment made by the mayor and the city on our future in Malden with our students and our staff. So we're very grateful for the additional funding we've had. It enabled us to address some needs that we've been hearing about for quite some time in Malden, specifically class sizes that have been problematic, especially at the high school. So this new budget includes 2 additional science teachers at the high school, 1 additional math teacher, a middle school health teacher, 3 SEI teachers, and we are looking at the staffing of that. They will be at the Salemwood, at least on the planning stage. An integrated first grade at the Ferryway, a middle school teacher at the Ferryway, a first grade teacher at the Beebe. Those are the additional line staffs that we are adding, and we're very grateful and fortunate to have that. This was a process that, as I said, was completely transparent. We worked on this for a long time. I want to publicly thank Tony Mertz, who spent countless hours preparing it, coming up with iteration upon iteration, new version, what-if scenarios. How do we project this into it? What if this happens? Okay, now we're back to this version of the budget. I don't know how she did it and kept her head, and more importantly, I think her sense of humor. We have quite a stressful job in preparing this, but we keep a singular focus, which is how does this impact positively our students? That's the goal that we make. It's not about the adults, it's what makes the most impactful, positive decision for our students. So that drove us during this process. Again, I would like to personally, on behalf of the Malden Public Schools and the students and families of Malden, thank our state delegation for this. I'd also like to thank the school committee for their continued support and advocacy for our students and staff. And at this point, I will entertain any questions or inquiries that you have, and Tony and I can answer them. Ms. Spatafora.
Excuse me, thank you, Superintendent, and thank you, Tony, for all your hard work. Just a few questions that I've highlighted, and Tony's actually taken the time to answer a few ahead of time, so I'll keep it brief. The first grade teacher that we're adding at Beebe, are we adding an additional classroom, or are we breaking up a classroom to reduce classroom size?
I think right now we have 6 kindergarten classrooms and only 5 for first grade.
So we need to add another first grade classroom.
Yeah, that was like a bubble class, so that will travel up to the first grade.
Makes sense. I noticed in the line items, district-wide, we'd gotten rid of HR director?
We did?
Correct. That was a decision. When we looked at it, it is challenging as it is to function with a large school district like this without an HR director, we really wanted to make a positive impact. So we deferred that position in this year's budget.
Okay. I'm just going to make note, I'm not quite for that, especially where we struggle with hiring diverse staff. I think having HR would be beneficial to that. The Director of Guidance. I'm definitely for that additional hiring, because we all know that social emotional well-being is imperative to our students. So I thank you for making that a priority. I don't think I have anything else in front of me at the moment. I'm sorry, I'm going through all my notes. I did want to make mention that the district local taxes, I'm grateful for a 3.7, almost a 4% increase at the local level. So that was a good outcome, as well as the drop in our utilities because of the Honeywell project. So it seems like we're on the right path when it comes to that. And Tony had mentioned we should be able to see an even further decrease in those costs down the road.
Yes, we should. Certainly with the Honeywell savings, we're optimistic that'll continue to be a savings for the city.
I don't think I have anything else at the moment. I'll let somebody else.
Mr. Iavino?
Thank you, Superintendent. With regard to the HR director, although you're deferring it this year, is that something that you're going to consider adding next year, or is that position?
Yes.
You are?
Yep.
Thanks.
Ms. Beardsley?
Messing this up. I know I emailed you. I'd gotten a couple of people asking about positions, co-taught classrooms. I didn't know if there was any, I don't know what the vision of the district is in terms of co-taught classrooms and with the different buildings. And I didn't know if there was a plan in place for that.
We were analyzing that. Mr. Wood and his staff are continuing to look at that, but in terms of adding it right now, the budget's set.
Right, that's it.
We're pretty confident right now going forward. We have the staffing we need to go into next year, but that's always, like I said earlier, the budget process is ongoing throughout the year, so that's something we will continue to look at.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Iavino.
Thank you, Superintendent. Picking up on Mrs. Beardsley's question about co-teaching, that really is a building-based decision, isn't it? With regard to the principal taking into different accounts of enrollment and...
A number of factors go into that.
Yeah.
I think one of the things we are looking to do going forward is to try to standardize as much of our instruction so that if there is movement within the district, that we're not creating inequities.
That's correct.
But you are correct, depending upon populations of some buildings, there may be different strategies and programs that exist in some schools that don't exist in others, but we're trying to minimize any potential of inequities throughout the district going forward.
Thank you.
Ms. Beardsley?
Yeah, thank you. The two additional Malden High School science teachers, I'm just curious about this. I understand that it probably in the course offerings as well as in how many kids are in classes. Is that where you're reducing the class size for science?
Yes, we have several sections that are exceedingly large.
Except for lab, et cetera. So I've talked to, being a high school science teacher, I've talked to plenty of people who, I'm just wondering if you're looking for, like, what Malden's looking for in those science teachers. meaning
What subjects, disciplines?
subjects, disciplines, and then also work experience, like veteran teachers or people, I mean, the most
Well, we
qualified.
obviously want the most qualified. We're also looking to hire as diverse a staff as we can, but we also have a finite amount of dollars too.
That's what I was wondering.
In terms of what the disciplines were, I know one's a biochem and
One's
biology, I think.
Yep, right. Biology and biochem, yeah.
I think, yeah, they've been posted, yeah. Ms. Spatafora.
I just want to jump over to the BB school page. So we added a nurse at the school, but I noticed that we reduced our nursing certified medical assistants from 2 to 0. Just curious, are the CMAs, are those nursing for maybe PACE classroom students that require medical?
Not necessarily.
Right, so there were 2 open positions for CMAs where they're on the para scale, so they're having a hard time finding those. So the new nursing director decided to get a nurse instead of a CMA, so essentially she traded in
Those
last
2
year,
recs
I wanna
and
say around November
created
timeframe,
one.
to
Okay.
get a nurse instead.
Yep. And then also, I noticed that we're going from 7 custodians to 4, but I did pick up that other schools were getting custodians. They were increasing their custodians, so are we just spreading out?
So the BB school in August of last year voted to outsource the BB school, so the 7, so the night individuals were shifted, so that we outsourced the night shift only, but we're keeping all of our own day
Okay,
custodians.
so it's
they
just a
were-
shift. So I'm seeing those other pickups in different
Correct, they've
schools.
been reallocated throughout the
Berry Way
district.
goes from 2 to 3, I just.
Correct.
Okay, so we're not incurring costs, we're just.
Nope.
Okay. That's it, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Froyo.
It's on the Linden School here, general teachers. There were 43.5, increased to 45. Where'd the increase go? The Linden School.
So we increased on the special ed. So we increased the special ed position, and we added some BCBA's this year.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Beardsley.
I was talking to Senator Lewis, thank you, the other night, and he had said that a lot of this is dependent on whether not all of this is finalized, correct? Meaning,
With what the
With this-
city gets back?
yeah.
That's
exactly.
correct.
So,
They haven't even voted on the budget, that's correct.
okay, so then I'm just wondering, best case scenario, worst case scenario. Like, best case, obviously, all this goes through. Worst case scenario, you have to come back to the, no, nothing. Okay,
Nope.
just checking. Thank you.
Best case, I hope, is better than this.
Right, okay, thank you. Got it.
Mr. Iavino.
Thank you. Mr. Oteri, I noticed that there is summer school paras. There are none for summer school, and same thing for the teacher in summer school. Does that mean that our numbers in that area are down, or what? What is? I'm sure there's summer school still in operation, correct?
So that's the special ed summer school program, and a portion of it's being picked up by the grant.
Okay, thank you.
So it's shifted off of us.
Okay, thanks, thank you.
Ms. Beardsley?
Looking at the athletics page, and I love the athletics program, wondering, is this cover athletics, or is this a very bare bones? Like, do athletics have to fundraise quite a bit to stay afloat?
Nope, so based on the asks from our athletic director, we were able to fund what he said he needed, plus an additional 3 coaches. I think one's a head coach and 2 additional assistant coaches have been funded in this year's budget.
Excellent. Oh, it's because in some districts, they're having to really pare down.
Yeah, and I think I just want to chime in on this. We do not have user fee or activity fees.
Yeah, that's.
Like most communities do, and I think that's incredibly important to note.
Yes, agree.
You know, particularly in urban districts, I think athletics is often another way in which we engage our students. It's a universal language for many students, and we have been very steadfast. And I want to thank the school committee and the mayor for not having to force us into that position, because I'm fearful that if we ever did, it would doom our athletic program.
I agree. Yeah, thank you so much for that.
Mr. McCarthy?
Thank you very much, Superintendent. I was actually looking at the Salemwood school profile, and I was looking down on the list, and it said elementary support, a 19-hour position. What's the justification behind that? What is a decrease in that?
So in the past, I want to say 4 or 5 years, we've had additional support specialists who help classroom sizes because the classrooms were big.
Okay.
So we at least allocated 2 at every school.
Yeah.
And some schools have a little bit more. I think Salem might have 3
Okay.
allocated. So they're hired for 19 hours a week, and they go in and help out the classroom teachers and do whatever is needed in the classroom.
So just on a need basis of when they have to go in? Oh, okay.
Correct.
All right, thanks.
Ms. Bordenaro?
Thank you, Superintendent. Staying with the Salemwood School, I noticed that the special ed therapist is no longer there. Is it because you have the psychologist in there taking place of the therapist?
Right, so just a reclassification, that individual is actually a BCBA, so we wanted to classify it correctly.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Spatafor?
You explain what the communications specialist / building monitor is. We went from 1 to 2 with a $30,000 increase.
So we had one last year, and we added an additional one this year. The first person we had was Stephen Frecker. He's the building monitor communications specialist. He is also does the newsletters for the district and for the high school, as well as a variety of other things related to communication, since his background is in journalism. And then this year, we were able to add another building monitor. This person that we've hired this time also has an additional linguistic capacity, so we've been very happy with that. He's been very engaging with our students, and another way in which we connect our students to an adult who's not necessarily a teacher. So we've found that both their presence in the high school have been really helpful in terms of, I think, easing any tensions that could erupt, diffusing things before they become disciplinary. So we've been really fortunate with that.
Thank you. Also, under our operation and maintenance budget, our copier contracts and copies saw a $20,000 increase year over year. It's, to my knowledge, this is more or less for the copiers, like the ink, color printing, not paper. Why? I guess is my question, and what can we do to reduce those costs? I mean, are we just printing too much? I mean, what are we?
A lot of it has to do with the ELC. So we originally had a black and white copier, and it wasn't really working for the kids over there, so they requested a color copier. So we did give them a color copier, because I guess it's easy for the kids to differentiate
And we're in a contract with, I'm assuming, a copier company.
Yeah,
that
and
we
because of-
lease the equipment for a certain amount of time and.
Correct,
Okay.
but that, also just the reason we went with the color copier over there is because so much of their adaptive technology that they use for particularly some of our students who are nonverbal is color-based.
Yeah,
So when we produced the paper, it had to mirror that.
totally get it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, you want me to? You can. Oh. Ms. Beardsley?
The transportation parent employee, could you just remind me what that is, and then it looks like it doubled, so is there 2 of them now?
Yep.
Are there, sorry?
The parents.
Where's that?
So we've had a few parents who have decided to transport their own child for out of district.
Misunderstood.
And they get reimbursed at the IRS mileage rate versus having us, pay for it. So they're essentially choosing to do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Audience would like to ask questions or speak? If you come up to speak, just state your name and address. I'm sure the superintendent will be glad to answer your question.
Absolutely.
Bonnie Littlejohn, Emerald Street in Malden. I just had just a couple little things. I noticed at BB, the team chair is now going up to 1 1/4. Is that because we have the PACE program there, or is that the reason they're gonna have somebody?
Nope, that's the answer.
That's the answer, okay. And I did notice that, the 504 coordinator, I know it was, because my daughter's on 504, I know there was it was a part-time job. And for the past couple of years, I believe. And I see that it's going up to a full position, but just as my personal opinion, for one position for the entire district, maybe in the future, there may be more than one, because I know there's a lot.
So it's actually 2 part-time positions. They're splitting schools, so it's not one
One doing
One
the whole-
full-time,
One
it's actually
FT.
2,
part-times,
Two
one
peop-
full-time equivalent, but they're two individuals.
but for the whole district.
For the whole district,
Correct.
yes.
Okay. My personal opinion is, I think we need more, just to consider that maybe next year for whoever is on the committee, the budget committee. Just because I know there's, working in the school, being a parent of one, I know there's a lot of 504s out there. And I know that it's hard for those people too, the person in position to get to everybody. They do, but also about the elementary support staff, how come, and I don't know, because I think last year I asked this too, like Forestdale has 3 budgeted, and they're the smallest school, yet some of the other schools have less, like even the Ferryway, I think, has less than, has 2, I think. Is it like they can be moved around?
Well, it's
You
the
know, like-
programming sometimes at the school dictates that, and some of the programming at the Forestdale, they have a higher percentage of intensive programs and structured programs there that would sometimes require an additional support person.
So the elementary support staff isn't for, I know there's other programs at the Forestdale. Is the elementary support staff, is that meant to be for the regular classroom? So, I'm just confused
So
about what
you mean
you're saying.
general education?
General ed.
Yeah. Yes, they are, but sometimes the programming there may take additional resources or paraprofessionals that would otherwise, so we have elementary
I
support.
need more there.
Correct.
I'm questioning, I'm just asking. Did you have any? And, at the BB again, the special ed paras went from 11 to 17, and I also realized that 11 was in the budget last year, and I know we may have added more during the year. Is that the case? Because it's not like you're just going to add 6 for next year, but during the year, we have had,
Correct.
that's, I'm just making sure I
Yep.
understand that, if it was, if that was it. And just out of curiosity about the athletics, I love the athletics program, just like Ms. Beardsley said. I'm just curious about the, the coaching doesn't seem equal. I'm just curious about that, like the pay for it. I mean, it just seems like on page 26. I was just curious about how that is, or if that's just how it always was.
Well, they're under a collective bargaining agreement.
Right.
Oh, they're under.
Right.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
That's
I
what
didn't know.
dictates their amounts.
Right, and those, are negotiated, but they're often, the
I didn't-
range sometimes is the length of the season, the number of students, athletes, it's,
Okay, I didn't realize that. And then is it because we have more nursing, on page 27, nursing insurance liability went up 1,300. Is that because we're getting more nurses?
Correct?
See, I'm answering my own questions. I guess I think some of the other things that the school committee actually asked that I was going to ask, but the members already asked. Thank you. Can I just say something else? I want to say first, thank you for putting the proposed budget, making it public for everybody to see. I appreciate that. And thank you for all your work on the budget, everybody. And thank you for not taking teachers away and adding teachers.
you're welcome. Mr. Froyle?
Call for a motion to end this public hearing. We need a motion to end this.
Make a motion.
All right, we have a motion made by Mr. Maravino, seconded by Mr. McCarthy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Is that it? Conclude?
Yeah, that's it.
Yes, we are. Okay, thank you, everybody. I guess we'll be in recess until 6 o'clock.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to call the school committee meeting to order. Today is Monday, June 3rd, 2019. We do not have another meeting scheduled. However, we will ask the school committee to recess, subject to the call of the chair, in case something else does come up during the month of June and over the summer. So what we'll do first is we'll rise and salute our flag. We're then going to have a moment of silence in honor of our veterans who have fought for our country and continue to do so. And we're going to have a special moment of silence to honor two tragedies that occurred in our community in the past couple of weeks, which the superintendent will speak to. And then we're going to get into this evening's agenda, which consists of the approval of the minutes, public comment. We'll then hear from our superintendent. Then after that will be subcommittee reports and discussions, followed by motions and resolutions, which at that point we will vote on the fiscal year 2020 budget. Then there will be personal privilege, and then again we will recess subject to the call of the chair. So if there aren't any questions from the school committee, I'd ask everyone to please rise and salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of all those who have fought for our country and continue to do so today. Thank you. We're now going to ask you to remain standing, and we'll hear from our superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the last couple of weeks, the Malden Public Schools has been hit by a couple of tragedies that have really been very difficult for us to deal with, but it's shown the compassion and empathy and collaborativeness in which we respond to such tragedies. A few weeks ago, we lost an 8-year-old boy at the BB school, Jaden Chung. Jaden has two siblings here at the Ferryway School, a 7th grade sister and a 1st grade sister. We'd like to honor his memory in a moment of silence. And then last week, Jeremiah Joseph was a 5-year-old boy who drowned in the Forestdale area. Jeremiah was registered to be a kindergarten student with us this fall.
Thank you. We'll now have our clerk call the roll. Here.
Ms. Beasley? Here. Ms. Bonner? Here. Mr. Fleming? Here. Mr. Ferrer?
Here.
Mr. Avino?
Here.
Ms. Leon?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Ms. Pettiford?
Here.
Superintendent Terry?
Here. All right, so we have a quorum sufficient to meet this evening. Let's get to it. So the first order of business is the approval of the minutes. It says the regular session minutes of May 6th, 2019. Motion by Mr. Iavino to approve. Seconded by Mr. McCarthy. Any questions, queries, qualms, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. That carries unanimously. Now, the next item on the agenda is public comment, but before we get to that, I would ask the school committee if we could first have the robotics team make their presentation and seek our approval for their competition that's set to happen over the summer. We'll have our superintendent speak, but I know I think there's a couple of students here, and we want to let them get back to what it is they have going on after this event. So let's go to, any objection? Chair has none. So let's go to our superintendent.
Thank you. The City of Malden, the school committee would like to recognize the accomplishment of the Malden High School robotics team for being crowned New England Regional Champions on April 27th at the University of Massachusetts at Lowell. There were 21 schools that competed. During the competition, there were several rounds. Malden was the only school to not lose a single competition during any round. It's an amazing accomplishment. They were on a roll like no one else up there. They've now qualified to compete at the Global Conference in Educational Robotics in July in Oklahoma. And we want to thank the two advisors, Mr. Christopher Bazzanotti and Mr. Brian Morrison. Please join me in congratulating the members of the team, and some of them are here tonight.
So they're going to say a few words?
Sure. Just before we do, a couple things. We like to recognize the students in just a moment, but we are doing some fundraising for this. We would also like to accept from the Malden High School Alumni Association a very generous donation of $1,000 to the robotics team. We can accept any and all donations made out to the Malden Public Schools. There's the cost of the trip and everything included is around $8,000. So we do need some money. Would like to send our students out there. We can take 4 students plus the 2 advisors. So any and all donations, please let us know. We are willing to accept them. On behalf of the robotics team, we have Mr. Morrison and Mr. Bazzanotti, but also Daniel Augustin, who is the club president, is not here tonight because he's playing with the high school in the state tennis tournament. But we do have Felix Lee, Jackie Lung, Michelle Nye, Thomas Tran, and Kevin Nguyen here. Unable to make it tonight were Manuela Sanchez, Angela Tejada Solis, Sean Tran, Valerie Dieva, and Ajithan Sathanyendra. So I'd like to call Mr. Mastrangelo up first on behalf of the high school to bring up the robotics team, please.
Okay, while they're making their way up, why don't we entertain a motion to accept the donation as outlined by our school superintendent. I know, Mr. Froy, you had that as an item, I believe. So let's, Mr. Froy, you want to make the motion? To accept the donation from the Malden High School alumni?
I make a, my God, I can't even. I make a motion to accept the donation from the Malden High School Alumni Association of $1,000.
Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Bordenaro. Is everybody clear what's happening? So this is a donation that was made recently that will go toward helping our team bring back the international title. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. That carries unanimously. Mr. Mastrangelo.
So thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of the students and the staff. Thomas Tran is also representing our school in the tennis tournament right now as well. But the excitement on that day, when Mr. Bazzanotti and I were texting back and forth, we're up 500. This school's making a run. Oh, we just moved up another 500. It was really like following the NCAA March Madness. It was a lot of fun. But the time that Mr. Morrison and Mr. Bazzanotti put in with our students, their own time, is incredible, and the trust that they have with the students. Daniel Augustin came to me one day and I said, Daniel, I need you to do me a favor. He said, what's that? I said, I need you to leave the school before 9 o'clock. You can't be up there working it. And he looked at me angrily and said, why? I said, because it's 9 o'clock and you have to go home. And that's the commitment that our students had. That commitment paid off. We're fortunate in so many ways. You see so many things, athletics and drama and music and art, all deservingly, but the time and effort that this group put in, from our advisors right down to our students, was incredible. And now they have the opportunity to go to Oklahoma City, 1 year away from going to Hawaii. I think next year it's in Hawaii, so they were that close. But Oklahoma City's nice. So we're very proud, and some of our students have graduated already, so they're technically moving on, but they're still going to put the time on. So I think it's really a point of pride for our school and a point of pride for our community. So I'd like to publicly congratulate our team for representing schools so well.
Bravo.
And I'm going to nominate Felix to speak on behalf of the team because he did such a great job at graduation yesterday. So go ahead.
So my name is Felix Lee, and I'm a senior at Malden High School. I want to first thank the school committee for donating $1,000 and the Alumni Association for that. And I have to say that our team worked tirelessly this year in order to do well, and I want to recognize our team members, Valerie, Kevin, Jackie, and Daniel, and a bunch of our other teammates for working countless hours after school in order to build 2 robots to compete this year in our regionals, and we're lucky to have placed first overall in our robotics regionals this year, and that we'll be able to move into internationals. So I want to thank you all for helping to donate and spreading the word on social media so that other people can help donate so that we can actually get to internationals and maybe even place. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So Jackie, do you want to tell people how to reach the page? It's GoFundMe, right?
Yeah. So this Friday, I put up a GoFundMe account or page for anyone who would like to support this cause, our club, in sending us to internationals. The link is kind of long, so I won't read it off.
Right.
But we've gathered about 1,500 so far, I believe. And after sharing the link on my social media to some teachers, to some other people I know, I think it's been making good progress, but we'll need the help of others to help spread it more.
And how do they find it? They just go to GoFundMe and search MHS Robotics?
Usually when someone shares it, it includes a link, and then they can
okay.
just click the link and it'll be there.
And for people here, when does it close? What's the deadline?
We don't have a deadline yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're hoping to hit it, I think, by mid to late June, right? So
Yeah.
you have an idea of, okay.
Yeah.
All right, any questions? Sue?
Just a couple of things. Also built into this is we would, since this is in Oklahoma, it's an out-of-state field trip, we would need approval from the school committee to go with that. I just want to formalize that for the record.
Okay, Mr. Iavino?
For the Malden School Committee to approve the Malden High School robotics team to attend the Oklahoma City competition.
Okay, is there a second? Second, Mr. Drummy. Is everybody clear? Any questions on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it, that carries unanimously. Superintendent?
Sure, just a couple of things. One is we would like to present the team with certificates on behalf of the school committee. So if we could maybe go into a recess to present that and do a photo, that would be terrific.
Okay. School committee will be in a brief recess.
No, we've got the sustainable development ones.
Are they here?
Yep,
All right, do you want to take care of them?
yep.
John, are they going to be long?
I think 3 to 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if there be no objection, one more student-led presentation, then we will get back to the regular portion of the agenda. Again, we just want to give the students a chance to get home, because we know they have a lot of homework, even though there's just a few days left in school, right, Superintendent? Yeah.
Just a few days left.
right.
We are in countdown mode.
All right.
Just one quick point on the robotics. They will be sending me the link. I will put it out on our Twitter account at Malden Public. I'll forward it to the mayor as well. So if you can, it would be a wonderful thing to help defray the costs of sending our students and staff there. Next on this, my report is the Sustainable Development Goals presentation. The mayor and I actually went to a presentation of this down at the Linden School. The students there have been working on this project for a few months. They made a presentation on May 10th to the mayor and me. And at this time, I'd like to call upon Dr. Doug Dias, our STEM director, to introduce the teachers and the students who are here to talk about sustainable development goals.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Rather than hearing from me, I'd like to turn this over to our two teachers, Christina Rosenthal and Liana Mofensky Ramos, and the students that are part of the club that brought it to my attention. And then I invited the superintendent and the mayor, and now we feel that it's valid and important for the committee to hear. So with that, I leave it to you.
Great, thank you.
My name is Christina Rosenthal, and I am a 5th grade science teacher at the Linden STEAM Academy. Last year, I had the opportunity to take part in a Fulbright teacher exchange with Japan to learn about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals Initiative, otherwise known as the SDGs. The SDGs are 17 goals for building a better world by the year 2030. They focus on universal challenges like ending poverty, fighting inequality, and stopping climate change. If you look at the SDG chart, which I think you have in your packet, you'll notice the broad themes of human health and welfare, education and opportunity, city management and infrastructure, and environmental sustainability. But they're all connected. Addressing one goal requires several other goals. The SDGs were negotiated by the leaders of 193 nations and stakeholders from business and industry, civil society, and the global public. So I was surprised that I had never heard of them. Turns out that's a pattern. People around the world, on national and local levels, are working to make progress toward the SDGs indicators, while few Americans are even aware of the goals. I came back from Japan inspired to do better. I worked this past year to bring these goals to my school and the Malden community. In my science classes, we researched how to improve food sustainability in urban environments and engineered solutions for people without land to garden indoors. We're doing outreach to teach people how to grow their own food and how this not only works toward the SDGs, but can transform their lives. I've led professional development sessions for teachers, showing them how we can use the SDGs as a unifying theme across curricula. And Liani and I supported a student-led after-school SDG club to involve policymakers in Malden, which is why we are lucky enough to be here with you today. And these are some of the students in our club. Malden is a city with strong traditions, and it is enriched by demographic change and a commitment to social justice. We want to leverage the diversity of Malden to connect with other cities around the globe and work toward the SDGs. We want to bring the world to Malden and share Malden with the world. The general lack of US commitment to the SDGs means there is real opportunity for Malden to become a national leader. Each SDG contains measurable targets to help cities track their progress and plan next steps, many of which don't require major investment, only effort and buy-in from the community. Schools, government, businesses, activists, and families. At Linden, we are already working to make our world and community a better place for everyone, and the goals help provide us with the resources, connections, and shared language to take our efforts to the next level. Promoting the SDGs in Malden will empower citizens to improve their communities and lives while also joining this essential global effort.
However, how can we get Malden to be part of this global initiative? My name is Liani Mokfiansky-Ramos. I'm the 7th grade science teacher at the Linden STEAM Academy and an environmental scientist by trade. To implement this initiative in our city, we need to make the SDGs our own, based on our shared values, our diverse culture, and socioeconomic priorities. However, there are a couple steps in this process. Our first one is spreading the word and raising awareness of the goals at the local level. We need to get local actors and stakeholders involved to get this conversation going. So who are the local actors and the stakeholders? You, our students and their families, businesses that support our community, local nonprofits, and our city officials. Once we understand the purpose of the SDGs, the next step would be to set our local agenda, where we adapt the goals and the targets into a realistic local plan through evidence-based decision-making that is backed by public support and input. This plan would also take into consideration what our city is already doing that aligns with the SDGs. Several initiatives are happening right now in the city of Malden that address many of the targets. For example, the city will be replacing the water main line in the next couple years. This project addresses target 6.1, which is concerning safe and affordable drinking water for all, as well as target 9.1, which has to do with quality, reliable, and sustainable infrastructure. Once the local agenda is finalized, we start the implementation process and monitoring the process to track our progress towards the goals. This way, policymakers can see how they're moving towards the goals. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. There are many resources showcasing frameworks on how to develop and implement the SDGs in our city. The goals are meant to inspire policymakers and encourage collaboration. Through the SDGs, Malden can improve the quality of life on a local level while leading the world on the environmental, economic, and social issues. Thank you.
Who's the president? Who's the president? Mr. President?
You want to go first or me?
Oh, they go?
The SDGs are important because our world used to be a better place than it is now, but over all the time, we've been adding new things to our world that has been hurting our world, but we did not know that.
All right, Madam President?
So basically, the SDGs could help us by how should I explain this? I forgot what I was going to say.
That's okay. That's okay. Plenty of time. We can come back.
They can help us by making our climate a better place for people to live in, and the better of a place it is, the more people who will want to be like Malden and become a better place to live in.
Maybe you want to tell them why we're doing the project with growing food.
At school, we're doing a project for growing food. We're doing that because it will, it cleans the, it helps with SDG like number 15, which is life on land. So like we wouldn't be using fossil fuels to transport foods from different countries and stuff, which is good for the environment because it wouldn't be wasting stuff and getting into the ocean.
All right, very good.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you. So are there any questions of the body? Or Superintendent, you want to add anything further, or what the next steps may be?
I just want to commend the students and staff on this. I think it's an incredibly enriching initiative and project that connects Malden to the world in a global sense of, you know, they're learning responsible management of our resources and the sustainability of that. And I think when we have young students that understand that, I think we want to foster that and capture that and do what we can. I think one of the things that the mayor and I noticed was that Malden is on the way with some of these. Some of them are very major global initiatives, such as ending hunger, that I think we would all like to do, and we're taking little steps with that. But I think it goes back to the mantra that started, you know, decades ago of, you know, act locally and think globally. And these really tie it in on a nice high level that have a number of things that our students and staff and community can sponsor and undertake and commit to.
All right, well, I know what my homework assignment is after tonight, so I will circle back with you as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to go back to the docket. Item number 2 is public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the community to address the school committee. We just ask that you state your name and address for the record, and we ask that you limit your remarks to no more than a few minutes. So with that being said, public comment is now open.
I'm a little taller. Hi there, my name is Jackie Ecker. I live at 58 Lanark Road in Malden. I'm a Forestdale mom. And I wanted to come and thank so many people for participating in improving the recess opportunities at Forestdale. So you've heard before that parents have been less than happy with some of our recess issues. They had been 15 minutes long. Kids weren't able to run around. They didn't have balls or anything to play with. And several people heard, at the higher levels, heard our complaints, and people like Tara Beardsley, the school committee member for Ward 5, she has been tireless in trying to extend recess, and I hope that her efforts are successful district-wide. I'd also like to thank Principal Don Concannon at Forestdale, because he has found a way to make the lunch time more efficient, so our kids are getting out and having 5 minutes of extra recess than they had previously. Now, I know it doesn't seem like a lot, it's 5 minutes, but you know what? You work with what you've got, and if you can make a creative solution and add 5 minutes of recess, then great. The kids are actually coming home and telling all of us parents how happy they are, that they're really enjoying recess now, and happy kids make for happy parents. So I'd also like to thank Barbara Murphy, Councilor Barbara Murphy for Ward 5, because she obtained a grant that upgraded the playground so that it could be ADA compliant, and she also was able to get some money for paint. So we now have Foursquare and hopscotch that the kids are enjoying. And I believe Mr. Concannon was also able to get some money from the city in order to get a big bin of balls and jump ropes. And so the kids are out there playing with balls, they're jumping rope, they're running around the field, which is grass, by the way. And they're having a great time. So my own child comes home, and he has said that he really loves recess now, and he's been coming home in a great mood. So I just wanted to say thank you to Tara, thank you to Barbara. I don't know if she's watching this from home. Thank you, Principal Concanon, and thank you all for, and to the parents too who have been pushing this to improve recess for our kids. They work really hard and they should have a lot of time to play as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to address the school committee can do so now.
Good evening, Penny Calvin, 194 Bainbridge Street. And it's perfect that Jackie went first because I too have some comments about recess and fields. So good evening. I'm here to ask you for your help concerning the renovation plan approved by the Finance Committee to use artificial turf on Roosevelt Park. We are no longer shocked that sometimes the city seems to forget about the wants and needs of the Salem Woods School students, but this is going overboard and ridiculous. Our ward counselors and even citywide counselors didn't think to ask the 1,193 students who use the park daily what they would like for the Roosevelt field. The design does not take into account their request for a basketball court and a handicapped accessible playground, or the health of our children who will use this field the most. So much of the literature and social media frenzy surrounding the subject says it's great for Salem Woods School, yet the teachers, administration, parents, none of us were consulted. Who is really gaining the most? Adult softball players, Mystic Valley Charter Regional School students, Middlesex soccer leagues, many of which who do not live in our city. I'd actually like to hear from the SDG Club about replacing natural grass with plastic crumble and see how sustainable that is. What is the plan for daily recess, now that Jackie brought it up? Can this council, this council has put so much time and effort towards the survey, and Mr. Concanon and the Forestdale has. According to the Ward 5 meeting, this field renovation will take approximately 9 months to complete. What's the plan for our children for those 9 months? The noise, the dust, the lack of play space for the school with the most children in our city. We ask that you look out for the best interests of the Salem Wood families, as we have done for the last 20 years. So many of us feel abused by some students, overlooked by the city, and insignificant to the school committee, and now even the city councilors too. This is easy to see by the high number of job postings at the Salem Wood School compared to the other schools in Malden. We will continue to fight for the best for our future, current, and former students. They deserve nothing but the best, just like the other students at the K-8 schools. It will be a very sad day if Salem Wood teachers vote against the extended learning time. But given the number of times we've pleaded for help from this committee, we will not be shocked. Teachers sat in a meeting literally crying to Mayor Christensen, Chief Molis, and Superintendent O'Terry at the beginning of the year, pouring our hearts out. And we're asked to take a pay cut. And that, for me, is insulting and sort of rubbing salt into our wounds. Once again, I ask this committee, please help the Salem Wood School.
Anybody else wishing to address the school committee can do so now.
My name is Susan Nyland. My address is 10 Clayton Street in Malden. I'm here tonight to state my opposition to the Finance Committee's recommendation to move forward with plans for a turf field at Roosevelt Park, AKA Salem Wood Field. I couldn't agree more with my Salem Wood colleagues who've eloquently expressed their opposition to this proposal. As they and other Malden residents have expressed, excuse me, there has been zero outreach to Salem Wood staff, students, families, and neighbors about plans to renovate the field. As if this were not egregious enough, add the fact that Salem Wood is home to our city's SEI students, meaning that their families are not fluent English language speakers. As city residents, taxpayers, and family of Salem Wood students, should they not have been afforded an opportunity to participate in the discussion about use of this important green space in Malden's most populated K-8 school? I've worked for Malden Public Schools for 14 years, all of which have been in sub-separate/severe special needs rooms. On behalf of my students and their families, I'd also like to add that inclusion of our feedback on plans for Roosevelt Park, AKA Salemwood Field, would have been much appreciated. Who amongst you have considered the needs of our students, who range in age from kindergarten to 8th grade? Installing a turf field at Salemwood has zero benefit for our students, most of whom require high teacher-student ratio. Safety when in outdoor spaces is our #1 concern. We advocate for equitable accommodations so that our students may enjoy as much fresh air time as their typical peers. I would strongly encourage school committee members to visit Salemwood School at our designated recess time, 9:15 to 9:45 a.m., to witness the inequity of current open-air accommodations for our students. Mayor Christensen, as one of your most ardent supporters, I would strongly encourage you to delay vote on the renovations to Roosevelt Park until such time as Salemwood students, families, staff, and neighbors have sufficient opportunity to express their opinions about use of this important green space. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to address the school committee can do so now.
Good evening. My name is Karen Cologne Hayes, and I live at 105 Wyoming Avenue, and I'm a Malden resident and a member of Malden Core, or Malden Community Organizing for Racial Equity. Malden Core is a volunteer-led group in the city of Malden that is dedicated to undoing racism in our public schools and community. We were granted the opportunity last week to present in front of the City Council, where we were well received. We spoke about our goals, the need to facilitate and promote justice, equity, and inclusion in Malden. We presented 4 key strategies, but tonight, for time, I'll mention only one of them, which I feel very strongly about: the need to provide safe spaces and effective processes for reporting and addressing incidents of racial bias and discrimination. Many in our group are parents, alumni, and educators whose concerns about racial equity come from direct involvement in our school district. We want to help ensure that our schools are inclusive places for everyone. We have asked the school district to clarify a process that staff members can follow if they want to report an instance of bias that falls along the lines of diversity, equity, or inclusion. Members of our group have been made aware of a number of incidents where racial bias has caused harm affecting both student and staff. There is also no clear pathway for staff, students, or families to report incidents of bias in our schools. We have encouraged the superintendent's office to clarify roles and responsibilities in writing so that schools can provide support when instances of bias occur. It is my hope that this request is being considered. In closing, I would like to invite you to the Malden's 2nd annual Juneteenth Freedom Celebration on Wednesday, June 19th. Juneteenth is the oldest known celebration for the abolition of slavery in the United States, dating back to June 19th, 1865, when Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, with the news that the Civil War has ended and enslaved people were to be freed. In the morning, there will be a flag-raising ceremony outside the Senior Center where Mayor Christensen will read a proclamation. In the evening, at 6:30, there will be a celebration and performances from our youth in Malden and a community dinner. I hope to see you all there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to address the school committee? Public comment remains open. Okay, seeing no one else, we'll close that portion of the meeting. We'll now drop down to the superintendent's report. And it looks like we've already addressed robotics and SDGs, and now this will be a general update. Superintendent?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
Okay, the BB principal search has concluded. It's been a rigorous vetting and interviewing process, which included focus groups with students, parents, guardians, and staff. There were 24 applicants for the position. 9 candidates were contacted for interviews. Of the 9 8 were interviewed, as one of them had withdrawn. On the 29th of April, our human resource consultant met with a group of 7th and 8th grade students, as well as a group of staff, as well as parents and guardians, to get their input in the profile of the next BB school principal. An online survey was also conducted to gather feedback, and common themes that emerged were cooperative, strong, honest, communicative, and approachable. On May 3rd, a committee of 12 comprised of staff, parents, administrators, students, and the HR consultant interviewed the 8 candidates. Of the 8 candidates, 3 were forwarded to the administrative leadership team for further interview. The team met with the 3 finalists, interviewed them, and after doing extensive background checks, reference checks, and taking into consideration the input provided at the various levels through our focus groups, a decision was made to appoint Dr. Carrie Ann Murphy as the next principal of the BB School. Dr. Murphy has more than 13 years of experience as an educator. During this time, she's worked with a variety of students ranging from 1st through 8th grade. She began her teaching career at Malden Public Schools as a student teacher, stayed here for the remainder of that year as a long-term sub for maternity leave, and then went over to the Chelsea Public Schools and worked in a variety of capacities, from a middle school science teacher and a school and district coach, professional provider for both Chelsea as well as Salem State University. Currently, she's an assistant principal at the Cumming School in Winthrop. We look forward to having Dr. Murphy on board. She most recently has become a trauma-certified educator through the National Institute for Trauma and Loss in Children. Dr. Murphy believes that all students deserve authentic learning experiences grounded in rigorous standards-based curriculum, carried out in a culture of kindness, collaboration, and respect. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Carrie Ann Murphy. She will begin here on July 1st, and we will have a meet and greet with the community sometime in the near future. The extended learning time is in negotiations, and we will be updating the committee on that as we receive input, as well as the other bargaining units are in contract negotiations. I'd like to update the school committee and the Linden STEAM Academy governing board. We received the resignation of faculty members. The entire faculty slate has resigned, and I am in the process of contacting the Department of Education for guidance and next steps regarding how we can mediate and come to some sort of next steps. I've left several messages with the the Associate Commissioner, and waiting to hear back. Most recently, I know we've spoken a lot this past year. We received a Bar Foundation grant. At our last, we've had many meetings, lots of work with the Bar Foundation, primarily examining the transition of students from 8th grade to high school, as well as their work after high school. In this, we have identified, some of which we've known, several issues of achievement gaps and equity and access. At this time, I'm going to call upon Assistant Superintendent Dr. Kelly Chase to provide an update. When we get back in the fall, we'll have a full presentation to the committee.
Good evening. So just to give you a little bit of background on this grant, it's important to know that many grants out there expect that you meet together as a team, you form an action plan, and you immediately get to work on action. And Bar Foundation is a little bit different from that in the sense that this is very much a planning grant. So their goal is to have us as a high school and district level team really think deeply about the data that they provide for us and talk about what we would imagine a perfect experience for a high school graduate from Malden High School. And so that's where I bring information tonight, just to give you an understanding of the work that's been done this past year. So first, what have we done as a team? There are about 15 members of the team so far, and we have lots more interest now that we've done a couple of presentations. This team has met at various times during the year, both in Boston at the Bar Foundation with other districts who are also recipients of this grant. And then we also meet monthly at least throughout the year with our Bar Foundation team, and they provide lots of data for us. And then finally, on top of that, we have a consultant that we've been working with. So what have we done so far? There have been piles upon piles of data that have been generated by Ernst & Young Parthenon team. And that's a lot of quantitative data that can really get into the nitty-gritty of what are our experiences for students and how do they persist once they leave Malden High School. In addition to that quantitative data, we've also looked at observations that Spring Point, an outside organization, has done for us, and then also interviews with recent graduates. So when you take all of that together, we have to sit and unpack the story of what that data is telling us. From there, we work with our consultant and we say, here's what the data is showing us. What does that mean for implications for what we need to maybe do next? And so with Barbara Kroc, our consultant, the team is working many hours to craft a vision for what we have in mind for all of our high school students, to set them up for success. That also means that we have to take a really deep look into what we provide currently and where we could use improvement. So we use the analogy of when Toyota makes a car, they didn't look at a 1990 Camry and say, we've got a pretty good product, let's just keep it as it is and never change it. They look at that car and they say, what do we do to make it even better for our clients? And so that's how we're looking at this grant. There's always a spot that we can improve upon, and there'll always be more work to do. There's never a shortage of it, but it's really embracing that growth mindset to say, let's keep going, and how can we make this experience even better for our students? So I think yesterday at the high school graduation, you heard of all of the great things that our students are doing. So how do we replicate that even more so that more can take part in that? And so Barbara's really a great taskmaster. So she listens to all of the feedback that that team provides, and then she says, okay, now settle down and let's take a look at this and what does it mean for going forward? And so that's prompted us to take a look at two areas. One is creating a vision for Malden High School. And then two, as part of that vision, how do we create smoother transitions? Because what we found with our data is that when a student comes into ninth grade and they experience difficulty in terms of passing all of their subjects, that takes them off track for success in a way that makes it imperative for us to put in some safety nets to make sure that they don't remain off track for success. So now that we know where some of the pitfalls are, what are the safety nets that we can put into place? So in addition to that, we also have a strand that looks at professional development. So we just secured a contract with the Buck Institute, and they are coming in on June 20th for free professional development for the entire day for grades 6 through 12, anyone that wants to take part, to look at Project Slice, which is project-based learning from a kid's perspective. So putting teachers through the paces and administrators if they'd like to join as well. What's going to be interesting about that is that with project-based learning, there's lots of struggle. So you get paired up with people that might not have an exact match to the way you learn about something. You might get matched up with somebody who really wants to be the boss and doesn't want to necessarily contribute. And how do you work through those struggles? And we're seeing that that's just as much a part of the challenge for our high school students as learning what's in your textbook. So that productive struggle will hopefully give participants a chance to see, how does this play out if I'm a student? And then maybe spark some interest for some further professional development. In addition to that, we also have a good chunk of this grant that's devoted to allowing teachers to explore best practices. And so we're looking into some area conferences and not so close conferences so that we can send people out and really look at what are the best offerings out there for kids in Malden, not just what's locally available. So through the summer, we're looking at working with our consultant to draft a vision for Malden High School, and that's complemented by the work that we'll do for a district improvement plan. We're looking at expanding the work to share our findings with the middle school and bring our middle school colleagues on board. So this first portion of it is really about a self-examination at the high school level, and then how do we share that with our middle school colleagues so that we can really grow this initiative. And then finally, a rough draft of a plan for creating a smoother transition going forward. So if there are any questions, happy to answer them.
Any questions of the members? Otherwise, we'll go back to the superintendent for his continued update. Do you want to add anything to that, Superintendent? So should the committee just hang tight for now and?
That would be my recommendation. We'll have a lot more to report. In fact, we've, it seems like every turn with this project we're in, they are more and more interested and intrigued with us. So I think that we're going to have a lot more to present formally in the fall, and that would be my recommendation. But we've been very happy with that. As I mentioned in my previous reports, we're very attractive to the Bar Foundation, and that's because I think there's a lot of good going on here, but we've got a commitment from going from good to great and really opening up opportunities for more of our students and making sure that the ones transitioning are not kind of falling through any cracks. Our goal, as I said to the Bar Foundation, is nobody falls through a crack. They're going to have to force themselves through one because we're going to put as many supports and transitions in place to ensure that they're successful.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Back to our superintendent.
Sure. Just highlighting some of the great events that have happened in May. I'm probably going to leave several out in the interest of time because there's been no shortage of wonderful concerts and plays that we've seen across the district that have been really quite rewarding and really show the dedication and commitment of our staff and the total just enthusiasm and wide-eyed wonder that many of our students go to school with every day, and it really warms your heart and makes you know that we're doing a good thing. One of the greatest events that I think we have every year here in Malden is the Special Olympics that took place on May 9th. This year's games were dedicated and renamed the Alex Games in memory of Alex Gentile, who passed away last year about this time in June. Was very involved in the Challenger Leagues and the Special Olympics, and it was a nice dedication and ceremony there with his parents. I thought that was just a wonderful day. I know the mayor was there with me. Our high school season, the culminations never stop. Friday, May 24th, we had our senior prom. It was an incredibly successful senior prom with a last-minute change in the venue. We were kicked off of the boat, if you will, which really I was not too sad about. Boat brings a lot of problems, least of which is the water, believe it or not. But we had it we were on the water down at the seaport, the Marriott Renaissance down in the seaport. Rebecca Corcoran, the class advisor, did a terrific job. Mr. Mastrangelo and his staff were there. I also made sure we had a school nurse there, and that's sort of going to be our protocol going forward. If we can have a school nurse there, just another level of safety and commitment to our students. There's a number of issues that go on, least of which can be what we get concerned about. It's often the smaller things that we take for granted, whether it be life-threatening allergies or other medication problems that come up. So that worked out very well. We had one of our school nurses there. The following week, we kicked into Scholarship Awards Night. Senior Scholarship Awards were over $100,000 were given out last Tuesday, including over $11,000 from the Golden Tornado Club that gave a number of scholarships to our student athletes. And then yesterday at McDonald Stadium, the Malden Scholarship, Inc. presented over $100,000. It really makes it special coming from a place like Malden where many people continue to give back to the community that gave them so much. We had our National Honor Society ceremony on Wednesday, May 29th. On Friday, we had the Pride flag raising at both Malden High School and for the first time at one of our elementary schools, the Ferryway School. It was a terrific event. The mayor and I attended both. And then yesterday, we had our graduation at McDonald Stadium. 427 diplomas were awarded yesterday, which was terrific. I want to thank Mr. Mastrangelo and his staff for a beautiful graduation. The weather could not have been better, but the smoothness of the ceremony, I think he did give proper recognition to both Judy Sullivan and Barbara Chiavelli. Those events, I've run many of them in my day. You don't get much sleep going up to it because all it takes is one thing to get out of order, and it's a major public event both in person with, over 5,000 there yesterday, but also it's televised. So I think that that went off beautifully. It was as nice of a graduation as I've ever seen. Turning to sports, the girls' outdoor track team finished first in the Northeastern Conference with an undefeated record. We also have a record-setting shot putter and discus thrower there in Shatea Smith, who is taking her talents next year to University of Massachusetts at Lowell, Division I track and field, where she will undoubtedly excel. She's an electric personality and a dedication that we all should have. Our boys and girls tennis team both made the state tournament, and I don't have an update yet on the boys. We won. Is that the thumbs up? We did win. We beat Peabody today, so that's terrific. So we live to play another day. And tomorrow, our girls take on North Andover. That's at Ambridge Park, Mr. Conifrey? Yes, sir. Terrific. 4 o'clock, Ambridge Park. Cheer on our girls' tennis team, and we'll keep you updated on when the boys play next and where. We have a number of end of June, end of school year celebrations coming up. Just to remind our parents and guardians, family out there, last day of school is Friday, June 14th, with an 11 a.m. dismissal. We have a full slate of professional development events planned during the summer. We have a number of things, I would almost call it Malden University, starting on June 17th, with a tremendous amount of professional development offered for our staff. We're really excited about that and hope people make good opportunity of it. All those schools out there, many programs run in our schools for the students. The Summer Eats program is available at the parks throughout the city, beginning on July 8th onward. That's the Monday after 4th of July. So children who are not attending summer school are welcome to head to the parks to get some lunch. That's a long-standing program. And that concludes my report for June.
All right, let's take some questions of our superintendent. Everything clear in the report? Ms. Beardsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As far as the governing board at the Linden resigning, next steps and/or your thoughts on sort of the situation, I guess?
I'm trying to get some guidance from the Department of Education. We're working, I've got calls into the Associate Commissioner in charge of innovation schools, and I'm hoping that I get some guidance that we can take back and come to some sort of resolution.
And as far as elections for next year, like because that was the last meeting, is there?
That's one of the things I need guidance on. I don't know what happens. The bylaws certainly contain some prescriptive instructions, but some of it gets a little gray, and we're waiting for some direction there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Beardsley. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none. Let's now go to subcommittee reports and discussions. Actually, before we go there, if there's no objection, I would like to drop down to item number 5 and have Mr. Valente come up on the proposal of the Marguerite Gonzalez Television and Media Studio, MHS. Now, Mr. Froy, you had this on here at the docket. Do you want to help introduce it? Is Chair here objection? Chair has none. Mr. Froy, tell us about this.
Well, first of all, in the end, I'd like to send this to the policy committee, but before we do, I'd like you to explain to the committee exactly what it's all about.
Would love to. Thank you, Mr. Froyo. Thank you, members of the committee. Ms. Sepitelli, I'm sure most of you know her, is going to pass out what I'm going to read, so I'm going to give her a second to do that. A 25-year veteran of the Malden Public Schools, I student taught under Ms. Marguerite Gonzalez at the high school, and I seem to know her quite well. She's sort of like a second mother to me, to be honest with you. As some of you probably already know through various reports throughout the year, there is a brand new television and media studio at the high school. We've waited close to 19 years to finally get the funding and the completion of that studio. And the report that I will read will give you an opportunity to understand why I feel and we feel that this might be a great opportunity to honor an individual who had so much to do with it. So I'm going to read from the handout that most of you have in front of you, if you don't mind. As many of you already know, Marguerite Gonzalez has served as a teacher, advisor, union president, mentor, as well as in many other capacities while employed as an educator in the Malden Public Schools for over 40 years. As a teacher of English language arts, she pioneered some 35 years ago a movement that would allow students to engage in what then was an emerging visual world. Ms. Gonzalez established a media literacy and production course at MHS, and through vigorous grant applications, cobbled together the funds to give the course some basic equipment to use to create content, and the MHS Filmmaking and Media course was born. Ms. Gonzalez would go on to instruct the course for the next 2 decades, and even without sophisticated and up-to-date equipment, her students excelled in the skills of television and media production. Ms. Gonzalez fought to build a formal studio at Malden High School throughout her tenure in the MPS, yet with budgetary constraints, it never came to fruition. When I took over teaching the course after student teaching and mentoring under Ms. Gonzalez, and she took on the task of advising the school newspaper, I carried on the plight of creating content with just a few items of technical equipment. Like Ms. Gonzalez's students, my students have gained several skills in the field, and many have gone on to enter the world of work in their media field. With the assistance of Mayor Christensen and the help of many others in the city of Malden, as well as the current and former students, the idea of needing a modern 21st century styled TV studio at MHS became a reality. With consultation through MATV, Superintendent John O'Terry's office, along with business manager Tony Mertz, the folks at Hunt's Photo and Video, as well as many others at MHS, including Principal Chris Mastrangelo, Peter Phelps, the custodial staff, and other facility managers, the truth is we were able to outfit a studio at MHS that will be ready to air programming during the next school year and continue to create content at a high level so that students can achieve their dream of entering the world of visual production. This current achievement did not start recently, even though the studio was newly built. It started 30 years ago with the dream of its founder, Ms. Marguerite Gonzalez, who lugged around heavy, outdated equipment to make it happen when budgets said it could not. This modern, state-of-the-art facility is her baby, so to speak. This reality was born of her making, and we feel it is only fitting that we commemorate the efforts of the past with the achievements of the future by naming the MHS TV studio in her honor. We propose that the MHS TV studio henceforth be named and called the Marguerite Gonzalez Television and Media Studio at MHS. We feel it is the only name that warrants consideration, for it bears years of dreaming and effort that are now a reality. We ask the committee move to make this consideration acceptable and allow the naming to be passed by the committee so that we may plan to commemorate this honor with a formal opening in September. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything, Ms. Vitelli? Okay. Now let's take some questions from the committee. Questions of the members. If I might, from the chair, time-wise, are you hoping for action this evening, or can we deliberate and come back in September? What's your timeline? What are you thinking?
That's a great question. We know that we'd like to have the studio full functional and ready to go by September, October at the latest. We would like to obviously do a formal ribbon cutting with all of those parties involved in getting the studio off the ground. I know that we haven't made this public, especially to Ms. Gonzalez, who of course is not someone who normally likes to have things named after her. And however, we feel that at this point, it would be great to be able to honor her sooner than later. So obviously, we'd like to be able to do so if September would be the time when we would cut the ribbon and make the studio in a formal opening.
Before I go to Ms. Spatafora, followed by Mr. Iovino, I just want to say very, very well written.
Thank you.
Yeah, very well done.
Appreciate it.
Before I forget, Ms. Sepitelli, this is off topic, but it was just great to hear at the pathway ceremony when Mr. Janowitz pulled me aside and said, you know, some of these students that are coming up to the podium were because of your efforts, so hats off to you. All right, let's go to Ms. Spatafora first, and then we'll go to Mr. Iovino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any questions, but having Ms. Gonzalez myself, having Mr. Valenti myself, I don't think there'd be any other way to honor her legacy than by this renaming. So thank you for taking that upon.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Ms. Spatafora. Now, Mr. Iovino.
Thank you very much, Jim and Eileen. Obviously, it was beautifully written, very well presented. We too would like to move this along. However, we do have a practice, and it would have to be referred, according to Mr. Froyo, to the policy subcommittee. But Ms. Bordenaro and I have spoken, And after this meeting, the policy subcommittee will have another meeting prior to the start of school, and that will be a topic for the policy subcommittee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will come back prior to
Fantastic.
the start of the new school year, and we'll try to do it sooner rather than later.
That'd be great.
So, you know, you have
Thank
some
you very
time
much.
to do what you need to do. Other questions? Ms. Bordenaro?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to piggyback off what Mr. Iavino was saying, first of all, I just want to thank you both. I personally know Mrs. Gonzalez, so, I mean, I don't think this is going to be an issue, but of course, we have to make sure it goes through the proper channels. There will be a meeting this month in policy. It will probably be in the next couple of weeks.
Excellent.
So.
Thank you. Look forward to hearing from you.
So could you make yourself available if the committee needs you for
Absolutely.
testimony,
Yep.
further testimony?
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions? Just one more from the chair. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Ron Hogan, who served point for us on
Absolutely.
renegotiating that contract with Comcast
Yes.
and made it a priority to get us some additional capital funding to make this happen. So, but I got a tour of it recently. It's what you said it would be and more. So
thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So let's take a motion then. Mr. Froyo?
That we, pardon me, send it to the policy committee.
Seconded by Mr. Iavino. Everybody clear? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. That carries unanimously.
Thank you for your time
We'll
tonight,
circle
ladies and
back.
gentlemen. Good evening.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so now we'll go to subcommittee reports and discussions, item number 4 on the agenda. We'll first hear from Mr. Iavino. This will be about space and enrollment. Then Ms. Bordenaro and Mr. Froyo will talk about the budget subcommittee deliberations. Then we'll stay with Ms. Bordenaro about policy and procedures, and then we'll end by hearing from Ms. Beardsley on social, emotional, and physical well-being ad hoc subcommittee. Mr. Iavino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As of this past Friday, the 31st of May, the enrollment in the Malden Public Schools pre-K through grade 12 was exactly 6,700 students. That's an increase of 67 since September the 7th of 2018. This is a fluid number. It changes on a daily basis. Tomorrow there could be 5 or 10 more or 2 or 3 less. So we are at 6,700, and it is about where it was last year at this time. It will level off now and will increase, of course, once the school year starts and after the 1st of October, as it generally does every year. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you. Any questions of Mr. Iavino? Hearing none. Budget Subcommittee, Mr. Froyo and Ms. Bordenaro. Mr. Froyo.
You want to start? All right, earlier this evening, Ms. Bordenauer and myself had a public hearing for the budget. It was accepted. We sent it to the school committee. The budget, the numbers of the budget, the new figure is $74,200,150. And with that budget, we were able to add 10 positions. One is a high school math teacher, 2 high school science teachers, 1 middle school health teacher, 1 integrated first grade Ferryway teacher, 1 teacher grade 1 BB, 3 SEI teachers at Salem Wood, 1 MS teacher at Ferryway. Also 2 administrative staff, director of guidance, and 1 additional assistant principal at Salem Wood, which they really needed.
All right, do you want to add anything, Ms. Bordenaro? Okay, do you want to?
Just. Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's nothing really to add, just, you know, I just want to say thank you for everyone that had worked on the budget. I know that it wasn't easy, so thank you very much.
What was the vote of the subcommittee?
It was unanimous.
Do you you want to add something, Superintendent?
I would really like to thank you and the school committee for your support. I've deemed this with our administrative team an investment in Malden students and staff. I think that this shows to us that you are committed. I also would really like to thank our state delegation. They've been very attentive, listening to our needs. I'd also like to thank the school committee and parents and guardians who came out at the grassroots level to advocate for this. Senator Lewis, Representative Altrino, Donato, and Broder have really helped to deliver and raise the awareness that gateway cities, the foundation budget formula, urban districts are really underfunded, and we're making steps in the right direction. But I want to thank you for the investment.
Okay, let's go Mr. Iavino, Mr. Froyo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the first time in several years that this committee, through the efforts of the City Council and the Mayor, have been able to add positions, 10 positions in Unit A and 2 administrative positions. Is it everything that we need? Not by a long shot. We sit here and we hear comments and criticisms as though people don't think that we understand what's going on, and we do. But much as you have a budget to operate and to live by, we have to live by a budget too. If we overspend our budget, we're subject to sanctions from the state. People don't understand that, but that's the reality of it. We hear you. We know what you're going through. And thanks to the city government, we're able to add no layoffs. This is the second contract where we haven't had any layoffs, and that's a good thing.
Thank you, Mr. Iavino. Mr. Froyo?
Yes, I'd also like to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and our state delegation. I've been on the school committee for 12 years, and it seems like for 11 years we had a cut. I started feeling like a butcher, cutting and cutting. We finally added some positions, and I hope it continues next year, because personally I would like to see the Arc Ed department grow a little bit. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Froyo. Just a couple of observations from the chair. First, I want to thank our superintendent, because if you look at the original budget proposal, there were some priorities that he had that he put aside because of what he's heard at public comment and throughout the community and from all of us. So, you know, I do want to point that out. Second, just to echo what has been said, you know, the power of advocacy works, and I think you're starting to see a shift on Beacon Hill, which should mean good things for, you know, our students moving forward. And speaking of which, we can't say enough about the class of 2019. In talking with the superintendent and Mr. Angelo, one of the moments I'll remember from this year is just a couple of weeks ago, when normally, you know, it's been said that, you know, the seniors have checked out, but not this class. They were meeting with us on finding ways, on trying to persuade us to reduce class size at the high school and offering us other suggestions around vaping. And to me, was just so impressive, and I think from what we all heard yesterday, reassuring that, you know, the future does remain bright. And then finally, I do want to acknowledge our finance team, again, talking about Ron Hogan and Chuck Rannigan. If you happen to see them out in the community, they had a lot to do with, you know, making this number seemingly work for our district in 2019 and 2020. So with that being said, I know it says down under motions and resolutions FY20 budget. If there's no objection, I think we can take that up right now. So I don't know who wants to make the motion. Let me get to you, Ms. Bordenaro. Yeah, 1 second. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make a motion that we accept the budget.
Okay. as presented?
As presented.
Seconded by Mr. Froyo. So now it's properly before us. Are there any questions? Mr. Iavino, do you have a question, further question?
No, I'm late in offering my praise of the way this was structured. I mean, this is absolutely, budgets can be very, very different. This is absolutely readable to the average layperson. And I know the superintendent, I know especially Tony Mertz, just a crackerjack job. Tony, thank you.
And let me publicly apologize to Tony for all those weekend phone calls. But it is, you know, I've been in public service now for quite a few years, and we used to get calls a lot, not just about the budget itself, but the layout. And I'm happy to say with her on board, we no longer get those calls. So,
easy to read.
all right, so let's, we have the motion in front of us. Let's just hear from our superintendent one more time before we vote. And Superintendent O'Teary.
I just want to reiterate what I said in the subcommittee in public comment, that our budgetary process is an ongoing process. We present it, and I'm thankful for the anticipated approval tonight, but we begin the budget process tomorrow for next year. And that's based on our needs of our students, the needs of our staff. We begin it formally in January in full transparency. We meet with each principal and director with the cabinet, and then we take those needs and wants and then begin the prioritization of it. I want to thank Tony Mertz publicly for this. The budget process is, we try to make this so that everyone can understand it. It speaks to the transparency that we have and our commitment to being as open in our channels of communication as possible, particularly around matters of finance, because I think you see in many communities some of that gets murky and cloudy and gets people into trouble, and we are very much in favor of that. Not in favor of avoiding that. We want to make sure that we are transparent and open. So this mirrors it, and I want to thank Tony for that. I appreciate you apologizing for all the weekend phone calls to her. I didn't hear any from me, but you know, I've got thick skin anyway. I'm okay.
So before we take the vote, I just want to make sure we all are on the same page about the power advocacy not stopping tonight, because the House of Representatives' final number on Chapter 70 is significantly different from the Senate's final number on Chapter 70. So we're going out on a limb a little bit that the Senate will prevail or be as close to that number. Now, if that were not to be the case, you know, we may come back together to discuss that. But again, the mood that I'm sensing, and that's because of, you know, the folks out here in the audience and all of you, I think we'll be closer to that Senate number. That's how we, you know, derived, that's how we put together our budget. All right, so if there's no other questions, we have a motion, we have a second. Let's have the clerk call the roll.
Ms. Beasley? Yes. Ms. Bordenaro?
Yes.
Mr. Drummond?
Yes.
Mr. Froyo?
Yes.
Mr. Iavino?
Yes.
Ms. Leon?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Spatafora?
Yes.
Mayor Christensen?
Yes. So that carries unanimously. Good work, everyone.
Good job, John.
All right, now on to policy and procedures. Let's go to Ms. Bordenaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank the team for all the meetings that we've been having on dedication specifically. We worked really, really hard. We do have a policy in place. I know Mrs. Spatafora has been modifying it, and we've been going back, so if you want to do the honor in reading it for the record, if not, I can, but I figured since you put in so much time, if you'd like to do it.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bordenaro. We'll go to Ms. Spatafora.
Thank you, Chair. The naming, renaming, and dedication of existing facilities. Naming, renaming, or dedication of any school building or sites within school premises is an important matter that deserves thoughtful attention. Personal prejudice or favoritism, political pressure, or temporary popularity should not be an influence in choosing a name. A name with educational significance or inspiration should be chosen, and the person or persons being honored must have strong ties to the Malden community. All naming, renaming, and dedication requests must be submitted in writing to the Malden Public School Committee. The school committee as a whole will then refer requests to the Policy and Procedure Subcommittee to ensure requests follow the policy set forth. If needed, further approval, for example, Public Facilities and Safety Subcommittee, If needed, the Policy and Procedure Subcommittee will direct requests to the appropriate committees for further approval, i.e. Public Facilities and Safety Subcommittee. After requests have been vetted by all appropriate subcommittees, the Malden School Committee will make the final approval decision. The Malden School Committee does not provide financial assistance to approve requests. The superintendent will establish procedures to manage requests and establish an inventory of dedicated sites.
All right, there you have it. First, let's get it properly before us. Is there a motion to approve this policy? Motion by Mr. McCarthy to approve. Mr. Iavino seconds it. So now it's properly before us. Just a question, if I can, from the chair, maybe to Ms. Spatafora. Second paragraph, first sentence. Shouldn't the superintendent perhaps vet these initially and then lets us know his recommendation, which we then can decide to act or not act? And then it would go to subcommittee, then back to the full committee? Because the way it sounds, it's coming to the school committee, then it's going to subcommittee, then it's coming back to the full school committee. What are your thoughts on that, or was that discussed?
So that was discussed, and I think we'd like to make an amendment up here. It was brought forth tonight that the superintendent should be the first point of contact for these requests, and then he can bring it forth to the school committee.
Okay, so that's going to be in the form of an amendment?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? So why don't we, if there's none, let's dispense with the amendment first. Ms. Borden, did you want to add something? I saw your lights flashing. 1 second. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add something to that. It made sense for all requests to go to the superintendent because he will be the only person that will have, him and his staff will have an inventory. So he will be able to determine whether or not something was already brought before, or if it was already dedicated, or whatever have you. So it wouldn't make sense for us to have it first, because we don't know what that inventory is, what it looks like.
Makes sense, yep.
So,
All right, well, there you have it. So let's take care of the amendment first. So you're offering that amendment.
Yep.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Iavino. So everybody clear? You heard the original. We're now going to amend the first line of the second paragraph for the superintendent to first receive the requests. All those in favor on the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed to that? All right, hearing none, the amendment carries unanimously. Now let's take up the policy as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, that carries unanimously. All right, good work. So is there anything else, Ms. Bordenaro?
I don't have anything at the moment. Like I stated earlier, I will be having a meeting. I'll touch base with Shirley in the next couple of weeks so that it'll be, we can take on the request that just came before us tonight.
Good. And if I may, from the chair, is one of the other topics going to be the Pope John closing and something about students, right? What was the other thing?
The transfer?
Yeah.
Of employees, children.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So we'll have those three.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, so we'll have the request that was just given tonight, the Pope John issue, because they will be closing, I think. I believe so, it was definite.
Yeah.
And the transfer of employee child for the 2019-2020 school year.
All right, good.
Which will be a little bit difficult, but.
Yeah, agreed. All right, everybody clear then on that? Thank you, Ms. Bordenaro. So now let's hear from Ms. Beardsley on social, emotional, physical well-being.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to just say, just to echo what Jackie said, I wanted to thank the Forestdale, Mr. Concana and Ms. Carpenito for listening to the recess inquiries, questions, and concerns of parents, staff, and students. The new equipment that was purchased, as well as the new equipment from Ward 5 Counselor Barbara Murphy, and the added time has made a huge difference to the students and the staff, and we truly appreciate the effort to try to fix the problem that we've been hearing about for a long time. I want to thank all the students and families that filled out the recess survey that's online now. We have almost 2,000 responses, and we'll be closing it this week in preparation for a presentation with the results and recommendations, hopefully in September. And we're going to try to get a panel of experts to support the recommendations and findings. So that's our update.
Okay, great. Any questions of Ms. Beardsley? Hearing none. We're now at motions and resolutions. We just dispensed with item 1, that was the budget. Now let's go to item 2, school improvement plans. Ms. Beardsley.
Yeah, in the packet, it was sent out the school improvement plans without, obviously the Linden has a different one, so the other 4 K-8s, we need to approve the school improvement plans. So we need a motion on the floor to approve.
All right, are there any?
6, there's 6 of them.
Any motion to approve? Mr. Iavino, seconded by Mr. McCarthy. Before we take the vote, Superintendent, you want to add anything?
We have the improvement plans here. They're an update of last year's. We use the same template. Going into the upcoming school year, we're working with, I think I'd mentioned in our last meeting, Dr. Laurie Likas, who is working on a district improvement plan. And once that gets established, and we'll be meeting with various stakeholders over the next several months and through the fall, then we will build a template for our school improvement plans that will mirror that. And I think we'd like to do formal presentations sometime in the spring with that before the academic subcommittee or whatever the committee's pleasure is, because I think that you'll see a more cohesive development of an overall district plan that each school will mirror, reflecting the goals and ideals and visions of where the Malden Public Schools direction is.
Very good. Any questions? Ms. Spatafora.
As Ms. Beardsley said, the Linden STEAM Academy is under a whole nother plan because they're an innovation school. When, Mr. Oteri, could we expect to see their plan?
So they have an innovation plan that's a 5-year plan, and there's an annual update. There was one provided this September or October, I think.
Okay. Sorry, I missed that.
It's okay.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? The ayes have it, that carries unanimously. So once again, under motions and resolutions, item number 3, naming, renaming, and dedication of existing facilities policy. We just had that discussed and acted upon, so we're good there. Item number 4, this is the robotics trip, which we addressed early on. Item number 5, the Marguerite Gonzalez Television and Media Studio at MHS is now with policy and procedures. And then finally, transfer of employee's child for the 2019-20 school year, 2020 school year is with policy and procedures. All right, if there's no other questions, we'll now jump to item number 6, which is personal privilege. We'll go left to right, and then we'll entertain a motion to adjourn in memory of Jeremiah Joseph and Jaden Chung. Mr. Drummy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the ELC on the 4th tomorrow at 5:30, there's a PTO meeting in the staff break room. Then on the 6th and 7th, they're at 10 and 12 p.m., 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. on both days. There are moving on ceremonies at the ELC, and there's a family slush night also tomorrow night at 5:30. At the Ferryway, PTO meeting is tomorrow night at tomorrow afternoon at 3:30. They will be electing officers at that time. On the 6th, we're having a family fun night at the Ferryway. City Councilor Peg Crow has got some surprises coming, some gifts, the kids will have some fun. We're going to do hot dogs. Principal Sepulveda is going to be cooking, so get ready, Abdel. We're all set there. We have field day on the 11th. Wednesday, we have a band concert. Band concert's at 2 p.m. That'll be on the 12th. And the kindergarten celebration is also on the 11th. That's at 2 p.m. At the auditorium. We have the moving on ceremony at 8:30 a.m. On the 13th, and that'll be in the auditorium also. And on the 14th, which is the last day of school, it's also Flag Day at Bell Rock Park, and that's going to be from 5 to 6:30. And you come on down and attend. It's a great time. I just want to say, everyone have a safe and restful summer, and happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Drummy. Now, Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just have a few points of information. The BB School had a great ice cream social last Friday evening, and I just want to commend, obviously, the PTO and the staff at the BB School for putting on a great ice cream social. I know myself, Ms. Spatafora, and the mayor were there, and it was a great attendance by a lot of students at the school. I had a great time scooping the ice cream with the mayor too. So it was fantastic. So obviously, all the students have a great rest of the school year, and we'll see you in September. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Ms. Bordenaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to congratulate again the class of 2019, and I hope everyone has a happy and healthy summer. And see you in September.
Thank you, Ms. Bordenaro. Mr. Iavino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to echo that. I want our staff and our students to have a safe and restful summer. I want to comment on something that has gone virtually unnoticed this year. In full disclosure, I'm a member of the Malden Kiwanis, proud member of the Malden Kiwanis Club. And each year the Malden Kiwanis Club has a guest reading. We read to every kindergarten student, every class in the city. And we do it 3 times a year. And at each reading, every child in this kindergarten class gets to pick a book. So by June, each kindergartner will take 3 books home. It's all part of the Malden Kiwanis and the Kiwanis International improving the lives of children each and every day in each and every way. This past Saturday, for the 3rd year in a row, the Kiwanis hosted a book giveaway at Miller Park. There were 6,000 books that were donated, and I think that we maybe took home 200 or 300. So every kid that was there, every child, every youngster could pick as many books as they wanted. Every adult could pick reading material that was appropriate for adults. There was face painting, there was free slush, and the hit of the day was the Bubble Man. The kids, they love it. It's really fascinating. It's something to see. And it brought smiles to hundreds of kids that were there. And that's something that we do every year. And a shout out to the co-presidents of the Malden Kiwanis, Robin Jorgensen and Don Fitzgerald, who is an administrator at the Mystic Valley Charter School. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iavino. Mr. Froyo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the schedule for the next 2 weeks for Linden STEAM Academy. On the 4th, where are we here? Day 1, on the 4th of June, there will be grades 6 through 8 will have their final exams. On June 5th, 6A grades final exams. On the 6th will be grades 6 through 8 final exams. And also, a big night, they have the exhibition night from 6 o'clock to 7:30. And believe me, if you don't get there early, I don't know if you know how close Linden Square is to the Linden School, but you might end up parking there. So many people attend that affair. On the 7th is the field day at Linden STEAM Academy. On the 11th, grade 8 goes to Canterbury Lake. On the 13th, grade 8 moving on ceremony, 6 o'clock to 7:15 p.m. And of course, on the 14th, that's the last day of school dismissal. And everybody have a safe summer.
Thank you, Mr. Froyo. Ms. Spatafor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tomorrow at the BB, there'll be a 5th and 8th grade band concerts. That's tomorrow, Tuesday, June 4th at 1 p.m. June 13th is the kindergarten moving up ceremony for BB, 1:15 in the school auditorium. I'd like to say thank you to Ms. Barbara O'Brien for her 1.5 years at the BB school as interim principal. During that time, she's helped create a student aspiration group, a parent aspiration group, principal roundtable discussions. She was always really open about communication. And with that being said, I'd like to welcome Dr. Carrie Ann Murphy as the next BB school principal. I'd like to thank Representative McCarthy for having the free little library installed at the BB school. So if you're looking to leave a book, grab a book, you can find that on the Elm Street side by the side door. We're working on having a steward assigned and getting that placed on the map, so not just our community sees that, but anybody can utilize that. I'd also like to wish the 2019 Malden High School graduates best wishes, including our current student representative who could not be here tonight, Sydney Stumpf, as well as our past student representative who also graduated. And she said it yesterday. She appreciates those that have learned how to say her name. I am not one of them, but congratulations to Brooke Sige. So if I could speak for the whole committee, we're really, really proud that they've represented their peers sitting up here for the past few years. And I think that's it. Have a fun, safe summer break and see everybody back to school the end of August.
All right, thank you. Superintendent?
Oh, I think Ms. Beardsley.
Oh, Ms. Beardsley, I didn't see you.
I'm sorry.
Go right ahead, Ms. Beardsley.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tomorrow, Penny Kalman and her students at the Salem Wood are going to be opening 2 new free little libraries at 11 a.m. And we're excited to see, like Jen was saying, all the MPS schools with their own little free libraries, because I, for one, have seen the one at the Linden have had so many books passed around, and it's really fun to watch. The kids get so excited. I wanted to thank Kathy Sullivan and the Salem Wood 5th graders for inviting me to their science class where they use interactive materials and explored the energy story. They were engaged, bright, and inviting. They actually used their outdoor green space for solar fans, and I'd like to ask formally that the Salem Wood staff, students, and families be brought into this Roosevelt project before going any further. And if there's a way the school committee can get involved in that, I'd be really happy. I'm really as well proud of the class of 2019, amazing group of students who are going to change so many things and have already changed the lives of my 3 children through things like soccer nights, Malden Rec, Malden Crocs, and so many more things. And also Brooke Sige and Sydney for being great representatives. And there's some announcements for the Forestdale. I want to thank all the educators in Malden, and they work their tails off, and I really appreciate everything they do, and have a great summer break. But Forestdale, there's a book fair going on all this week after school till 3:30. The school council meeting is Wednesday, June 5th, 6 o'clock in the Stephen H. Feldstein Library. Forestdale Field Day is Wednesday, June 5th, all day. Forestdale Grade 8 Moving Up Ceremony is June 13th at 6. The Forestdale School Community would like to thank the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and school committee, and the mayor for their continued support. Salem Wood events, book fair now through Thursday, June 6th. Salem Wood Educators Retirement Party, Thursday, June 6th at the Kowloon. They're going to be honoring Kathy McDonald, Diane Shabdigian, okay, yep. Deb Scalero, Dottie Tringali, and Chris Berg, who will be retiring this coming year. The K-4 field day is Friday, June 7th. Middle school field day is Wednesday, June 12th. Grade 8 dinner dance is Thursday, June 13th at Anthony's, and grade 8 moving on ceremony is Friday, June 14th.
Great. All set, Ms. Beardsley? Thank you very much. Superintendent?
Sure. What I didn't mention in my report when we were announcing Dr. Carrie Ann Murphy, I want to get back to this later in the presentation is I'd want to personally thank Barbara O'Brien, who's done a remarkable job as the interim principal there in a year and a half. Her acumen and high IQ when it comes to social, emotional of our students and what their needs are is unparalleled of any educator I've worked with in my 3 decades in education. She's been phenomenal. We're going to miss her. She's excited to work with Dr. Murphy in the transition, but I do want to acknowledge that we will, as a school committee, I think, be remiss if we didn't take that. I want to thank Ms. Spatafora for that acknowledgement as well. But Barbara O'Brien has just done a remarkable job there. I think she has raised the level of awareness in our school, made our educators even better, and our students, most importantly, have been positively impacted.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, just from the chair, it's worth mentioning again, yesterday on stage with Mr. Mistrangelo, we were talking and I said to him, remember last year, we said, could it get better? A year later, it did. And I think that's a credit not only to the high school, but I see a lot of the K-8 principals and APs here and directors, they too should take credit, because when we were talking to a lot of these graduating seniors, they made sure to mention their upbringing down below, from pre-K, kindergarten, all the way up. And sometimes we tend to forget when we're talking in segments, but it was so great to hear this class say that they had a really good experience through and through. And just give you a small story of, what kind of caliber of student we're dealing with, these students. You mentioned Representative Stump. So Shirley our clerk had texted me the other day, and there was a message from Sydney Stump, and she asked if she could be excused for tonight's school committee meeting. I've never seen that in my 20 years of public service. Typically in June, again, they're off on to the next chapter, but she actually took the time to call Shirley, to call me, to see if we would grant her permission to be excused from tonight's meeting. Just classy. And it's just epitomizes what we have here in Malden. And so, again, hats off to everyone gathered here this evening and across the district. So we're going to adjourn in memory of Jeremiah Joseph and Jaden Chung. Who wants to make the motion? Motion is made by Mr. McCarthy, seconded by Ms. Spatafora. So we are going to recess, subject to the call of the chair. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? We stand in recess, subject to the call of the chair.